Module 3, Text and Copywriting, within the framework of the project Digital Skills for Cultural and Creative Industries. Unit 2, Copywriting and Language. Welcome back to Module 3. In our first unit, we've learned how to look at text from the perspective of neuroaesthetics, aka emotional cadence, or what appeals to our brains. And we've tapped into the way we can enhance our advertising copy by giving it a 3-act backbone. We are now looking at our consumers as protagonists in the story for which we play the roles of both the sinister villain and the hero in shining armor. Now's the time to step back from the passionate craft of storytelling and take a good hard look at the actual vehicle of our story, our language, grammar, and style. As humans, we are obviously imperfect in our ability to track down mechanical mistakes or immediately pick up on the exactly correct phrasing to be used in any given situation. We can have varying degrees of aptitude in writing, with some formats that we're more familiar with, like texting and formal writing, or writing that pertains to our specific field of work, be it law or scientific research or something else. That leaves us with an uneven distribution of skills, really, when it comes to putting words on a page. That's fine. Most other people also can't readily navigate every single rhetorical situation that they're put in. As I mentioned before, during this lesson, we will learn how to build a solid stylistic and grammatical base while using digital tools like linguistic corpora, synonymizers, and AI assistants in an effective and controlled manner. The first thing to be said about having a cohesive style and an eye for contextual detail is that it comes with loads of practice. We can practice writing actively by picking a discourse topic and responding to it, or passively by mindfully reading within our desired branch of expertise. The best thing about writing advertisements, we actually passively practice it almost every day. Every time that we scroll on social media, drive past a billboard, or sort through our email spam folder, we subconsciously retain bits and pieces that compose the telltale advertising style. It's truly a bit shocking how chock full our world is of advertising if we really turn our eye to it and pay attention. That can only mean that we have a pretty tough competition to match up against. I also keep mentioning the phrase rhetorical situation, and while it might be made clear by its surrounding context, I'd still like to give it a more precise definition. Now, rhetorical situation refers to the specific circumstances that surround a piece of communication. It's the context that dictates what should be said and how in order to achieve a specific goal. In copywriting, it consists of 3 main elements: the exigence, aka the problem, the audience, and the limitations. We all know what an audience is, and I've extensively talked about how to approach your audience in Unit 1, but what are the other 2? Exigence is the reason for communication, basically the motivating force behind a copy. It's to solve your customer's problem. The limitations are the factors that influence how you communicate. Your medium, be it an Instagram post, a tweet, or an X post, an article, your tone of voice, the time of day the message is sent, etc. In order to improve your odds at meeting the challenge and navigating your rhetorical situation well, you must have the tools to do so. You can't slay the dragon without a sword, right? So don't be ashamed to use synonymizers or synonym dictionaries if you ever find yourself struggling with vocabulary. Most time, just searching up target word synonym should be enough, but if you want a more comprehensive list, you can bookmark a few websites that specialize in doing so. For the Russian language, I often use classes.ru, which gives you a broad choice of dictionaries to peruse, including the really technical ones. Synonym.org also works pretty okay. Usually you'll need a few of those close at hand to cross-check with. If you want to know the etymology of a particular word and which demographics use it most often, you should look into linguistic corpora. Some of them have a paywall, but others are perfectly free to use. This way, you will know for a fact what context you'll need to use this word in, and you'll drastically lessen the risk of publicly embarrassing yourself or the brand you represent. And now, for the start of the show, we've finally approached the hot new topic of Artificial intelligence. Certainly, there are advantages that come with the assistance of the robotic variety, but there are significant drawbacks as well. That is, if you don't know what you're doing. LLMs, or large language models, are rapidly becoming powerful tools for copywriters, primarily by acting as a partner to streamline and enhance the creative process. There are lots of advantages to using LLMs in copywriting, some of them more questionable than the others, but I'm going to say there are lots of very strong points. For example, brainstorming and idea creation, which is something that my colleagues from Module 1 have talked about extensively. You should totally tune into their module and learn more. The gist here is basically that AI tools can help overcome writer's block, the universally beloved and bemoaned state by writers everywhere. By generating a large number of ideas, headlines, primers in seconds, your AI assistant can help you conquer that blank space on your page. This can be a great starting point for developing content, even if you don't really end up using all of the ideas. Secondly, efficiency and speed. That's a really big one. LLMs can rapidly produce first drafts of ad copy. They significantly reduce the time it takes to complete a project. This allows you as a copywriter to increase your output and focus more on higher level strategic work. Thirdly, there's research and outlining. AI can certainly assist in the early, emphasis on early stages of research. By providing concise summaries of information, it can help you structure content. And that certainly makes the research phase more structured and organized. But there are going to be more than a few caveats at this particular point, so we'll circle back to that in a few minutes. Editing and refinement. After a draft is created, an LLM can be used to proofread for grammar and spelling, or to rephrase sentences to improve clarity, tone, and flow. This can be useful if you struggle with proper grammar and spelling, or if you struggle with structuring your sentences in a way that allows for some air. But AI doesn't always process your words in an obvious way. You need to remember that. It's a predictive mechanism that offers you a string of words that are used together most often. It doesn't really comprehend what it's reading, in the same way that it cannot really tell how many letters there are in the word strawberry. And this brings me to some of the disadvantages of LLM-assisted writing. You shouldn't let them stop you from using LLMs if you really wish to, but it's just something to keep in mind as some of the drawbacks that you need to compensate for. Their misuse can lead to significant problems in the final output. They're not an all-solving crutch. They're not a skeleton key that opens all doors. The first one is pretty obvious. It's generic and soulless content. A major risk is that AI-generated content can be very generic. It lacks a distinct brand voice or personality. It basically sounds like everything else out there in the market. It's slop. Then there's fact-checking and hallucinations. Since LLMs are trained on vast amounts of data, they can often hallucinate, meaning that they create false information, including sources or a bibliography if you need one. You must always verify all data before publishing. Loss of intellectual ownership and creativity. The use of LLMs can be akin to having a literary ghost, like a ghostwriter. But you should keep in mind that an MIT study recently has determined that participants who relied on LLMs for essay writing showed significantly reduced brain connectivity and struggled to recall what they had written. This suggests that over-reliance on AI can dull creativity and impair your ability to retain information, and obviously feel a sense of ownership over your work. And then obviously there are legal and ethical issues, because AI-generated text is not currently copyrightable, and it can be quite obvious if you use AI in your text. Using a significant amount of it can violate publishing contracts and get you and your brand into a lot of trouble. Additionally, many people in your audience may feel cheated or duped if they're not aware that the piece that you're shoving in their faces the pitch that you're giving them is fully AI generated. The most effective copywriters will be those who master the art of writing with a clear prompt and thoroughly proofreading and editing. Using an LLM does not absolve you of proofreading. I cannot express this particular point enough. If anything, relying on AI requires you to conduct more attentive and controlled proofreading. When you write something on your own, you can always be sure of your thought process. AI, however, is non-transparent when it comes to its multitude of sources. Even if you prompt it to give you a list of sources for a paragraph is just written, you can't be sure that the list is not hallucinated. LLMs are a complicated piece of technology that draws on a million references, some given freely, some scraped without consent. It's a well that's filled via 1,000 straws. I'll leave the ethics of using non-consensually scraped content for all of you to decide individually for yourselves. I just implore you to use it consciously and responsibly if you have to. While we're on the topic of knowing your thought process, Google's Gemini can actually show you a step-by-step breakdown of its work while it's generating in real time. It also has a built-in link to its sources at the bottom of every response. Take it all with a grain of salt, of course, but I find it pretty neat. Can't hurt to check it. Maybe you'll find more profound advice if you track it to its origin. Something you'll need to be wary of is rapid platform decay or digital degradation. It's the decline in quality of online platforms over time as they prioritize profit over user experience. Lazy copywriting is a key culprit in this process, especially when fueled by the misuse of large language models. This creates a cycle where low-quality content floods the web. The slop drowns out human-written content, which in turn makes search engines become less useful. In an age of broken search, where the average SEO writer is seen as a slop-excreting orifice, the goal is to produce diamonds among the endless flow of garbage. This means creating content that is truly valuable and well-written, rather than just churning out low-quality articles to gain search algorithms. Platform decay is bad in all aspects, but it's especially bad if you over-rely on LLMs that get dumber by the month. If all source data that LLMs have to go off is stuff generated by other LLMs, how soon are we going to completely stop comprehending what we see on social media? It'll be better to preserve the quality of AI generation by using it responsibly and editing liberally. Some of the tools that I use occasionally are the aforementioned Gemini. It has a more corporatized style of writing and is sometimes prone to forgetting your inputs, but if you want something tied to the Google ecosystem, it's a good choice. ChatGPT, it's more customizable with varying tones of voice, but its user data privacy is still a questionable matter. It's not really going to help you if you're working with a sensitive client and don't want any leaks of their product. Lastly, there's a variety of creative writing LLMs with varying quality, but my favorite is TipTap. It's quick on the uptake, has good memory in my experience, and adjusts well to tone changes. If you want to deep dive into some techniques and exercises that'll help you train your copywriting muscle, join our Telegram channel. This is going to be it for Module 3. I hope that you have learned something new in both of these units, that you're going to certainly try your hand at all of these exercises, and perhaps that you have informed your copywriting in a significant way. Thank you so much.